A 54-year-old tech CEO storms into Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom 42 minutes late. Designer suit perfectly pressed. A Rolex Daytona gleaming under the lights. Phone pressed to his ear like the court doesn't exist. He isn't walking. He's striding. Talking loudly. Issuing orders. Acting like he owns the room. Judge Caprio calmly asks him to silence his phone and explain why he's late, again, after already skipping a previous court date. The man laughs. Actually laughs. Then he says 5 words that make the entire courtroom freeze. You can't judge me. Judge Caprio's pen stops mid-sentence. The CEO doesn't apologize. He doesn't look embarrassed. He leans forward with pure arrogance and asks the most dangerous question a person can ask a judge. Do you know who I am? Then comes the line that seals his fate. I'm God in my industry. Because telling a judge you're God is the fastest way to meet actual judgment. Thursday morning, 10 a.m. sharp. The bailiff calls the case. State versus Theodore Langston. Failure to appear. Contempt of court. No response. The podium is empty. 10:15. Still nothing. 10:30. Judge Caprio's patience is thinning. Bailiff. Has Mr. Langston contacted the court? No, Your Honor. 10:40. The courtroom doors swing open. A man in his 50s enters. Charcoal Tom Ford suit that probably costs more than most people's rent. AirPods Max hanging around his neck. Phone glued to his ear. I don't care what the board says. He snaps. Make it happen. That's why I pay you. He glances at the judge and holds up one finger. Wait a minute. As if Judge Caprio works for him. Tell Singapore we're pulling out if they don't agree by Friday. Judge Caprio's face is stone. Sir, the judge says firmly. End the call. Now. The man ignores him. Finally, he sighs into the phone. Yeah, I gotta go. Some court thing. Handle it. He hangs up. No apology. Judge Caprio's voice turns ice cold. Your name? Theodore Langston, he replies slowly, confidently, like the name alone should end the hearing. Mr. Langston. Judge Caprio says, you were ordered to appear at 10 a.m. It is now 10:42. Explain why you're late to a contempt hearing. Langston shrugs. Actually shrugs. Traffic. You know how it is. You couldn't notify the court? I'm here now, aren't I? Let's get this over with. I have a meeting at 11:30. The courtroom is silent. Everyone knows. You do not talk to Judge Caprio like this. Judge Caprio scans the file. You're the CEO of Langston Technologies. That's right. You failed to appear for a traffic citation hearing 3 weeks ago. No call. No explanation. That resulted in this contempt charge. Do you understand why that's a problem? Langston exhales impatiently. Your Honor, he says, like it pains him. I run a $400 million company. I employ 700 people. My responsibilities are more important than a parking ticket. Judge Caprio slowly raises his eyebrows. More important than a court order? I didn't mean it like that. Judge Caprio looks directly at him. Then how did you mean it, Mr. Langston? And that's the moment Theodore Langston realizes something money never taught him. In this courtroom, no one is God. Langston's patience, what little of it he has, finally snaps. What I mean is, I'm a busy man. He says flatly. I forgot. It happens. Can we just pay the fine and move on? He reaches into his jacket and pulls out a checkbook. In open court, like he's settling a dinner bill. Judge Frank Caprio's expression hardens instantly. Mr. Langston, he says, put the checkbook away. This is not about money. This is about respect for the legal process. Respect, Theodore scoffs, his voice rising. I built a company from nothing. I created jobs. I pay more in taxes in 1 year than most people make in 10. I think I've earned some respect. You've earned financial success. Judge Caprio replies calmly. That does not earn you the right to ignore court orders. Langston laughs, a short, condescending bark. With all due respect, Your Honor, you don't understand the world I operate in. Split-second decisions. Millions of dollars on the line. I can't be worried about parking tickets. This stopped being about a parking ticket. Judge Caprio says. It's about contempt of court. You ignored a lawful order. That is a crime. A crime. Langston's face flushes. That's ridiculous. I'm not a criminal. I'm a businessman. A successful one. Judge Caprio leans forward. Mr. Langston, success does not place you above the law, no matter how much money you make. And that's when Theodore makes his catastrophic mistake. He leans onto the podium, locks eyes with the judge, and says with absolute certainty, "Your Honor, you cannot judge me the same way you judge regular people." The courtroom goes dead silent. Judge Caprio's voice drops to a whisper. "Excuse me." "I said, you can't judge me like everyone else," Langston repeats. "I'm not everyone else." "Then who are you, Mr. Langston?" Theodore straightens, chest out, chin raised, pure arrogance radiating from every word. "Do you know who I am? In my industry, in my company, among my peers, I am God. What I say happens. When I make decisions, reality follows. 700 people's livelihoods depend on me. I control outcomes. I create results." He pauses, like he's delivering a keynote speech. "So when I tell you missing a court date isn't a big deal, when I tell you I have more important things to handle, you need to understand I operate on a different level than the people who usually stand here." The courtroom is frozen. Mouths hang open. This man just called himself God in a courtroom. Judge Caprio sits perfectly still for 5 long seconds. When he finally speaks, his voice could cut glass. "Mr. Langston, did you just refer to yourself as God?" "It's a metaphor, Your Honor, for the level of authority and responsibility I carry." "I see." Judge Caprio replies evenly. "And does this God status exempt you from the laws of Rhode Island?" Langston realizes, too late, that he's crossed a line, but his ego won't let him retreat. "What I'm saying is my time is more valuable than what?" Judge Caprio snaps. "Then this court? Then the legal system? Then the rule of law that applies equally to every citizen?" "I didn't mean." "You said you're God in your industry." Judge Caprio cuts in. "So let me tell you who you are in my courtroom, Mr. Langston." The judge leans forward. "You are a man who broke the law. A man who ignored a court order. A man who showed up 42 minutes late without apology. And a man who believes his bank account makes him untouchable." Judge Caprio pauses. "In this courtroom," he says slowly, "there are no gods." That his bank account buys him privilege. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe wealth doesn't buy respect. Judge Frank Caprio opens the statute book with deliberate slowness. Theodore Langston watches, his confidence finally beginning to crack. "Mr. Langston," the judge says evenly, "contempt of court in the state of Rhode Island carries a maximum penalty of 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine. Do you understand that?" The color drains from Langston's face. 6 months, he stammers. That's excessive for missing a court date." "Is it?" Judge Caprio replies. "Because from where I'm sitting, you didn't just miss a court date. You ignored it. Then you arrived late to your contempt hearing. Then you repeatedly disrespected this court." The judge's voice rises, controlled, but unmistakably firm. "And then," he adds, "you told me you're God." "It was a metaphor," Langston mutters. "No." Judge Caprio corrects him. "It was arrogance. Pure, unfiltered arrogance. And I'm going to teach you something your money clearly hasn't." He pauses. "Humility." Judge Caprio begins writing. "First, the original traffic citation. That was a $75 parking fine. Because you failed to appear, it is now $250. Langston winces, but stays silent. Second, contempt of court for failure to appear. $1,000. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Third, you arrived 42 minutes late today, without a valid excuse. That is a second act of contempt. Another $1,000. Langston's jaw drops. $2,000 for being late. No. Judge Caprio says sharply. $2,000 for showing contempt for this court twice. The judge's eyes are steel. But we're still not done. Langston swallows hard. What else could there possibly be? Your conduct in this courtroom. Judge Caprio answers. The phone call you refused to end. the dismissive attitude, the checkbook stunt, and the "I am God" speech, demonstrating willful disrespect for judicial authority. He writes again, slowly and deliberately. These are aggravating circumstances. I'm imposing an additional $2,000 for obstruction and disrespect. Langston's face burns red. For $1,000, he snaps. This is outrageous. Is it? Judge Caprio responds calmly. You said you pay more in taxes in 1 year than most people earn in 10. You said your time is more valuable. You compared yourself to God. He pauses. So $4,000 should be pocket change for a deity. The courtroom erupts. Applause breaks out. Someone shouts, yes. Langston makes one last attempt to regain control. Your Honor, I'll appeal this. My lawyers will. Your lawyers. Judge Caprio interrupts. We'll review the courtroom video where you called yourself God and told me I couldn't judge you. I encourage the appeal. I'd love to see how an appellate court responds to that testimony. The judge isn't finished. Mr. Langston, you said you employ 700 people. Those people depend on you for their livelihoods. Have you considered what kind of leader you're being when you act like the law doesn't apply to you? I never said that. You said it with every action today. Judge Caprio cuts in, arriving late, refusing to end your call, pulling out a checkbook like you could buy your way out, declaring yourself God. He leans forward. What does that teach your employees? That success means freedom from consequences? Langston has no answer. I see a man who achieved financial success and confused it with moral superiority. Judge Caprio continues. I see someone who believes wealth equals wisdom. I see a CEO who's never been told no and doesn't know how to handle it. The judge's voice softens slightly, but loses none of its authority. Mr. Langston, you're 54 years old. You built a successful company. That's commendable. But success without humility is arrogance. Money without respect is paper. And power without accountability is tyranny. Langston scoffs weakly. Are you giving me a philosophy lesson? The courtroom inhales. Judge Caprio looks at him steadily. Wrong response, he says quietly. Catastrophically wrong. Judge Frank Caprio's voice turns cold once more. No, he says evenly. I'm giving you a reality check. He looks directly at Theodore Langston. $4,250 in fines. Due within 30 days. If you fail to pay, a warrant will be issued for your arrest. The room is silent. And Mr. Langston, Judge Caprio continues, when the police arrive at your $400 million company to arrest its CEO, you're welcome to tell them you're God. He pauses. See if they care. Theodore leaves the courtroom shaking, rage and humiliation fighting for control. As he reaches the exit, a calm voice stops him. Mr. Langston. He turns. An older man stands in the gallery, composed, observant. I'm Victor Chen, he says. Board of Directors, Langston Technologies. The color drains from Theodore's face. A board member witnessed everything. Victor, I can explain. Don't. Chen interrupts. I watched you arrive late without apology. I watched you disrespect a judge. I watched you call yourself God. He holds Theodore's gaze. The board will be discussing this. It's not what it looked like. It's exactly what it looked like. Chen replies. And it confirms every concern we've had. Your leadership style, your disregard for accountability, and how you treat people you believe are beneath you. Victor Chen walks away. Theodore stands alone, the weight of consequence finally crushing down. Back in the courtroom, Judge Caprio addresses those still seated. Ladies and gentlemen, he says, what you witnessed today is what happens when someone confuses financial success with personal superiority. A young woman raises her hand. Your Honor, I work in tech. Langston Technologies is known for a toxic culture and CEO worship. Employees call him the Oracle. Murmurs ripple through the room. Then an older man stands. Your Honor, I'm a retired judge from Massachusetts. I drove here after watching your courtroom videos. What you did today was a masterclass in judicial authority. That man needed to learn he isn't above the law. Judge Caprio nods. Success is admirable. Building a company, creating jobs, achieving wealth. Those are real accomplishments. But none of them exempt a person from decency, accountability, or respect for the law. 3 days later, the video goes viral across the tech world. CEO calls himself God in court, destroyed by judge. This is what happens when nobody says no for 20 years. Judge Caprio delivers a masterclass in humility. 1 week later, Langston Technologies board holds an emergency meeting. Victor Chin proposes mandatory leadership training for all executives, starting with the CEO. The vote is unanimous. Shortly after, Theodore Langston issues a public statement. I apologize for my behavior in court. I allowed arrogance to cloud my judgment. I am committed to becoming a better leader and a better person. He pays the $4,250 in full on time. 6 months later, employees notice a change. The CEO still drives results, still leads boldly, but now he listens. He thanks people. He shows up on time. He treats everyone with respect. Someone finally asks him what changed. I met a judge, Theodore says quietly, who reminded me I'm not God. He pauses. Best lesson I ever learned. Subscribe to Judge Stories for moments when arrogance meets authority, and when one word, God, costs $4,250. Theodore Langston walked into court believing success made him untouchable. He walked out poorer and infinitely wiser. Judge Caprio proved what courtrooms always do. They are the great equalizer. It doesn't matter if you're worth $400 million or 40. The law applies equally. Respect is mandatory, and calling yourself God only proves you need humility the most. This is what happens when a CEO forgets he's human, when wealth becomes a shield instead of a responsibility, and when one judge reminds an arrogant man that in a courtroom, there is only one authority, and it isn't him. Comment below. Was $4,250 enough? Or should Judge Caprio have gone harder? Let's discuss.